Okay, good morning everyone and Hazak Baruch. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Thursday morning as we are getting ready for Shabbat Kodesh. And here we are everybody as we are studying Perashat Shemini. Perashat Shemini deals with many heavy topics. Today I would like to jump to a topic that we didn't get a chance to discuss yet this week in our very important Perashat. And that is going to be the topic of not kosher animals. Okay? Very heavy topic. Of course, it's found in our Perashah. It's going to be discussed again later in the book of Devarim. But our Perashah is where the Torah really discusses and focuses on kosher and not kosher. And what are the signs of kosher animals? What are the signs of not kosher animals? Birds, fish, animals, insects, etc. All of the details are found in our Perashah. And today I would like to share with you a very delicate topic, okay? Today's a very difficult type of class to give. I'm talking today on a very high level, okay? So I'm just going to preface with that. I'm sharing with you. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's good to go a little bit deeper, a little bit higher. We have to always strive for the best. So what I'm sharing with you today is a very important topic, but again, some of us may not hear it right away. So I apologize in advance. But it's something that I think is important to discuss. When the Torah begins about the kosher and not kosher animals, please turn to chapter 11. This is where it's brought down. And the pasuk says, chapter 11, Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe el Aharon lemor. God speaks to Moses and to Aaron saying, so far so good. Daberu el bnei Yisrael lemor. Tell the Jews the following. Zot hahaya asher tochelu. The following are the creatures that you may eat. Mikol habehema asher ala aretz. From all the animals that are on the face of the earth. The following animals are kosher, okay? And then he goes on to give him the signs. We all know what the signs are, right? What are the two signs for a kosher animal? Regurgitates, right? Chews its cud, and split hoof, okay? Those are the two signs for kosher animals. Says Rashi, Daberu el bnei Yisrael lemor. Tell the Jews the following. Zot hahaya. These are the creatures, asher tochelu. Rashi, me and you, we read the pasuk, nothing wrong. Rashi right away notices. Zot ha'haya, asks Rashi, why do we pick the word chaya, which means animal? What's the better word to say animal? Instead of chaya, it should be behema. Zot ha'behema. These are the behemot, these are the animals that you're allowed to eat. What's zot ha'haya? This is Rashi's question. Says Rashi, you know why we use haya instead of behema? Unbelievable. Leshon hayim. Haya is from the word hayim, life, to live. Lefi sheYisrael devukim b'makom. Uru'uyim liyot hayim, because the Jewish people who cling to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they cleave to Hashem and therefore deserve to remain in life. And therefore the word haya from the word hayim. So God tells us, be careful, this is unclean, do not eat these animals. He imposed certain commandments on us. The other nations who do not cleave to Hashem, v'le'umot lo asar klum. All of these animals are fine. And Rashi over here is telling us something very important. And that is that a lot of times we wonder, I don't understand, if this animal is not kosher, if pig is not good for you, if this is not good for you, then why is it telling me, why is it okay for a non-Jew? Okay, good question. I'm going to come to that question in a minute. Okay, good question. Going back over here. If this animal is not kosher and it's going to affect my soul and you are what you eat, and we all know those Rambans, right, the very important ideas on our Perashah, so then why could Goyim eat it? They're eating it and they're fine. So Rashi is answering that question. Rashi is saying it's true. Goyim can eat these animals and nothing will affect them. But for a Jew, we are more delicate. Our sensitivities are a little bit more refined, and we have to be a little bit more careful in what we eat and in what we don't eat. Mashal, says Rashi, I'll give you a parable. There was once a doctor who came in to visit his patient. There were two patients. One of them he knew was going to die. and one of them he knew had a chance of living. The one that was going to die, the doctor didn't really care to give him a diet. He didn't tell him what to eat, what not to eat. You're going to die anyways. Enjoy. Eat what you like. The one who's going to live, you have a chance. But if you have a chance, that means you have to make sure you stay away from these foods. Now the sick patient's like, it's not fair. Why letting him eat whatever he likes? I also want to eat that food. But the doctor says in his head, he can't tell it out loud, but he says in his head, you fool, you have a chance of living. And these foods will help you get out of here. These foods will help you live. Says Rav Yerucham Levavit, something very important. When it comes to the Goyim, it's all allowed. And the Sababi Kelim gives a beautiful mashal. If you look at certain animals, they're allowed to eat certain foods that we as people cannot eat. Now, if we were to eat it, spoiled food or whatever, it would attack our kidneys, our livers, we would get sick. All of a sudden the dog eats it, and the dog's fine. Does anyone wonder, hey, how come it's okay for the dog to eat that food? It's not fair. I want to eat that food. Of course not. You're made up of different things. You and the dog are different levels. The dog has certain organs that it could handle certain foods. People are different than dogs. Says Rashi, Jews and non-Jews are different. On a spiritual plane, we have different neshamot. Foods that are okay for non-Jews are not okay for Jews. And they will affect a Jew differently than how they will affect a non-Jew. You look at, as an example, at athletes. Anyone familiar with the Tom Brady diet? Tom Brady, okay, he's retiring, he's not retiring, nobody knows anymore, okay? The guy's in football, he's out of football, he comes back in, the guy's going to play till he's 100, God bless, okay? You ever saw his diet, what he eats? This guy, it's unbelievable. By the way, there were other players, okay, you have to fact check this, I don't know, I heard. There were other players that saw how well he's performing, and they decided, you know what, I want to have his diet. If that's how well he's performing on eating those foods, I'm going to adopt his diet. And they had other teammates of his starting to eat like him and having his schedule, etc. You know what happened? They actually got very injured because his diet wasn't good for them. Okay? Very interesting. So this was something that was made for his body, for his makeup. Is there anything wrong with eating a little bit more carbs? I eat carbs. You're right. You eat carbs. I eat carbs. If you want to be Tom Brady, you can't eat those carbs. You have to eat these types of foods. If you want to be performing on a high level like that, okay, that is the point that Rashi is trying to make over here. Okay, if we are going to excel on the spiritual level that we were meant to have, we have to realize that, by the way, that there is a spiritual realm, even though maybe we don't see it. We have to realize that just like food could physically harm us, food could spiritually harm us. It's a reality. It's not a sin. It's not a punishment. It's not that if you eat non-kosher, God's going to punish you. No. This is going to literally affect your spirituality. We have to realize that sometimes the foods that we eat are literally affecting us. Okay? And it's because we have such a delicate spiritual frequency. If we want to stay healthy, we have to stay away from certain foods. And the truth is, it's not only, and this is the important thing that we're going to talk on today. Not only when it comes to not kosher, but even when it comes to any matter of spirituality, something that a Jew does is going to affect him very differently than something that a non-Jew does. Rabbi Yerucham brings an amazing story with himself. Nizdamitli, he writes, I was once invited to be to stay in a house that was right next door to a university in Vilna. Midei pa'am, from time to time, as I would walk by the house, as I was sitting on the porch, I noticed the boys and girls coming to study in the university. And I would notice that right before class began, you have all the boys and girls hanging out outside, and they're each one's, playing with their hair and making sure they're looking good, and they're flirting with each other, and there's nonsense going on, and the boys and girls and all the pritzut and the immorality. And you see all this going on. And all of a sudden, the bell rings and they walk right into class. And he says, there's no contradiction between those kids going and excelling in their academics and what they were doing a minute before and acting immorally. The boys and girls doing whatever they're doing, and then a minute later you're going and you're learning all of these difficult things and you're attaining, high grades. Would anyone say, oh, how could you do both? Is a contradiction? No contradiction. You could do what you want with your girlfriend in the hallway, and then a minute later go to class and be the top kid in the class and become valedictorian. There's no contradiction. Not only that, but he says it's very possible that even the professor, I don't know, he says, but maybe even the professor is immoral like them. Would anyone have a question? Oh my gosh, professor, how could you do those things? You're a professor after all for calculus. What are you doing with at nighttime? No one asks, no one cares. Well, this is math, and this is your night life, and they don't have to contradict. Be'am Yisrael, says Rav Yerucham, but when it comes to us as Jews, ro'imanu et ha'hefech hagamur, we realize that it's the exact opposite. Holelut upritzut, immorality. Zohi hastira hagdola beyoter la Torah. We realize that if a person is, hanging out in the hallway and doing immoral things, and then a minute later going into a Torah shiur, that's a contradiction. Many times people say, I don't understand, Rabbi. How do you look at these people, they go into shul at night and they're learning, and then a week later you see them on all of these pictures, clubbing and doing all of these horrible things in different cities. How could it be? Right? Because we realize that there is a difference between studying any subject versus studying Torah. B'matzav shel kalrut rosh, when a person, their head is not in the right place, it prevents them from really being able to absorb the Torah. Hirhur kal beyoter, the tiniest thought. Histaklut she'eina hogenet, the tiniest look that's inappropriate. Hem hamafri'im hagdolim, they can cause tremendous waves and disrupt the frequency of the learning of the Torah. And this is something that we all realize is true. And Rav Yerucham here is saying, not only do foods affect how we think and what we do, not only does a food, and the pasuk says, nitmatem, al tikri nitmatem, our rabbis say, ela venittamtem. Don't read it that the foods make you impure, rather read it that the foods block. We have to realize that the foods that we eat block. They literally, like you have a clogged artery, the things that we do can clog our spiritual arteries. We have all of these networkings in our body. A lot of times a person could be in a class and the rabbi could be saying something. A person could be opening a Gemara or a Chumash and reading something. A person could open a Sidur and pray and not understand. I don't understand. It's not going. It's not smooth. It's not flowing. Ever feel like that? Sometimes we could be standing and praying and you look around, everyone in the shul is kavanah and we're just, nothing's there. Why it's not fitting? Why not? What's wrong? And the answer, according to what we're learning today, is because maybe there are things that we are doing. Maybe there are averot that are literally clogging our spiritual arteries. And we have to realize that an averah is not just a sin. You do a sin and then you move on. You go to the next stop. In America, if you break a law, okay, you shouldn't have broken the law. But you yourself aren't affected necessarily because you broke the law. You're the same person. You were Ariel before, you're Ariel after. You went through a stop sign. You shouldn't have gone through the stop sign, but if no one caught you, no one caught you. But we have to realize when it comes to averot, it's not the same thing. Before the Averah and after the Averah, I'm a different person. And my arteries are now clogged to a certain level that I won't be able to perform to the same degree that I was able to perform beforehand. If I eat something, it's going to affect me. So we have to realize that the Torah is made up of two steps. It can't just be, I do my Averot, but it's okay because I also do mitzvot. And they kind of cancel each other out. No. No such thing. My averot are going to affect the way I do mitzvot. They're going to affect the way I feel the mitzvot, the way the mitzvot penetrate me. The pasuk says that you have to love Hashem. We say it every morning. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha ve'hayu hadevarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha. Simply, the Torah is saying that you should do the mitzvot with all of your heart. But anyone that speaks Hebrew understands that it's not correct. Al levavecha doesn't mean with all your heart. It means on your heart. What does it say? Al levavecha. It should have said, what should it have said? Bilvavecha. Do it with your heart. Why does it say do it on your heart? And our rabbis say, because sometimes the mitzvot are not in the heart. Sometimes the mitzvot are only on. Sometimes they're above. But why? Why is it that we can't do it with our hearts? And they give a beautiful mashal. They give a beautiful parable. There was once a farmer. We gave this mashal several times. We'll say it again. There was once a farmer. He came to New York City. He wanted to tour. He heard about all the sights. And his cousin picks him up from the airport. And he sees his farmer cousin coming off of the plane in all of his farmer clothing, in his overalls. He goes, listen, cousin, you can't dress like that. This is New York City. That will not fly. Okay, I don't know, maybe today, you could dress however you like. But when the story was said, when the mashal was given, he couldn't dress like that, right? He said, I'm going to take you to a store. I'm going to dress you the right way. They go to the store. They go to, Barney's, Alav Shalom, one of these places, right? One of these stores, department stores. And he says, listen, I need you to set my cousin up over here. Give him a nice suit. And the tailor, the salesman, he looks at him. He sizes him up. He says, all right, your size is this. He hands him a 40 regular. Comes back. He gives it to the guy. He says, go try this on. Okay. He goes to the back, to the changing room, to the fitting room. He tries on the suit, and his cousin's waiting outside. A minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. What's going on? He hears his cousin making all these weird sounds. He's like, Joe, everything okay in there? He goes, Abe, the suit stinks. The suit stinks. He says, what? He says, the suit, it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. He calls back the sales rep. He says, listen, do you think maybe you gave him the wrong size? Maybe take his measurements with a tape measure. He says, listen, Habibi, I've been working here for 35 years. That's his size. He's a 40 regular. That's his suit. All right, listen, Joe, open the door. Let me see. Something doesn't fit. He opens the door. He comes in. Abe looks at his cousin, and he starts laughing. He sees his cousin put the suit on top of his farmer clothing. Right? He says, you fool. The suit's right for you. But first you have to take off the clothing and then put on the suit. The nimshal, the message, is that sometimes we're doing the mitzvot like the suit and we feel like they don't fit. I don't know, Rabbi, I'm not connecting to prayer. I don't know why the learning is just not interesting. All the other people are loving it. I'm not connecting it. Gemara is not for me. And the truth is we have to realize Gemara is very for us. The suit is our size. The praying that we do should work. But in order for it to work, we have to take off the old clothing. We have to remove the layers and layers of clothing that we have underneath that are preventing us from being able to appreciate and to absorb the Torah the right way. The sins that we do are the clothing that are not fitting. The sins that we do penetrate, they create a shield. And now the mitzvot cannot penetrate. They're blocking. Says the pasuk, Ve'ayu adevarim ha'ele al levavecha. If you want the mitzvot to be good, if you want the learning, if you want the praying, if you want the chesed to penetrate, it has to be al. It has to be directly on the heart. If it's on the heart, then you realize it fits beautifully. But if it's not al, if it's not right on it, if you're still wearing your overalls, if you're still doing the averot, if we still have the things that we're doing in our lifestyle that are going to create that barrier, that separation, then the mitzvot are not going to go. He brings over here a beautiful proof. He says, and he quotes over here the Aderet Eliyahu, the Gaon Mevilna, the Gra. Shele'ahar shehata. He says, go back one line. Davar ze lamadnu mehet'o shel Adam harishon. We learn this, from where? From Adam harishon. Ahar she'achal me'etz hadat. Once he ate from the tree, what did God say? The day you eat, you will die. Now the truth is, did Adam die after he ate? He didn't die that day. He died 930 years later. So what happened to God's promise? When you eat, you'll die? The answer is, God didn't say you're going to die that day. God said, when you eat, you are going to change your reality from somebody who is immortal to somebody who becomes mortal, somebody who is capable of dying. And that is what changed. The moment Adam ate from the tree, that is the tragedy, and that is why God kicked him out of Gan Eden. God says, from till now you were able to be in Gan Eden, but from now on, you cannot be here. Why do you have to kick him out? Because in Gan Eden is the Etz HaHayim, the tree of life. You, Adam, and the tree of life are no longer compatible. Till now, you were able to appreciate, you were able to really understand it was for you. A story is told and brought down over here. When Rav Moshe Cordovero, the famous Ramak, one of the biggest Kabbalists of all time, when he passed away, the Arizal was at the funeral. And he was walking the body. And many of the students followed the rabbi. The Arizal announced out loud and he asked the following question. At the funeral, he asked his students, does anybody see anything? Does anyone notice anything odd, anything strange? One young boy came over at 15 years old, and he says, Rabbi, ani ro'eh, I see. Ma ata ro'eh, my son, what do you see? He says, Rabbi, I see a big pillar of fire surrounding the Aron of the Ramak. The Arizal was astonished, he was shocked that a 15-year-old boy could see the fire that he himself was able to see as well. He said, you, my son, are going to become my student. I want to adopt you. I want to teach you Torah. You're going to come into my family and probably make him his son-in-law. He was so astonished. He was ready to teach his boy firsthand. Well, the next day the boy shows up to the house. Vera'ah, and the Arizal sensed on the face of this boy, Shenitma be'oto layla. Something happened last night that this boy became tameh. This boy became impure. Either a thought or something that he did. And the Arizal sensed it on this kid. And he yelled and he says, Hamadrega shelcha ibadta. You lost your spiritual level. Tsemi beti. Please leave my home. Eni rotze lerot od panecha. I never want to see you again. You are no longer worthy to be my student. Just imagine what this kid would have accomplished. Who this kid is, we don't know, by the way. But just imagine what he would have been capable of learning had he just not done that one thing. I don't know what he did, he doesn't say. But that one sin, that one Averah was able to create a timtum halev. It was able to clog the artery. And the Arizal realized that no longer are you going to be able to reach the level that you reached yesterday. Of course, with teshuvah, we can remove our sins. With teshuvah, we could unclog our arteries. But until then, if we don't do teshuvah, no mitzvah in the world is going to be able to undo a sin that we did. And it's true, by the way, the same way our body, physical body, has limbs and organs and veins. And we have to give our body the proper nutrients and the vitamins and the nutrition, or else the limbs die. But if a person has food that they're eating that are not healthy, oils and fats, they're going to clog the arteries. You could be taking the vitamins. You go back to your doctor a week later. Doc, I'm not sure what's going on. I'm taking the vitamins, but I don't feel better. And the doctor asks the patient, are you staying away from the bad foods that I told you? Are you sticking to the diet that I gave you? Because so long that you don't quit the bad habits, if you're still smoking, if you're still eating those foods, all the vitamins are not going to penetrate. They're not going to help you. They're going to clog the veins, the arteries that the good food needs to get to where they need to get to. So we have to realize that in spirituality it's the same thing. Sur merav v'aseh tov. Maybe you won't feel it right away. Maybe right away in the immediate math, you're going to feel fine. You eat not kosher, I feel good, nothing happened. But there's a cloggage going on. And slowly it's building up. So David HaMelech says, Sur mera va'aseh tov. You have to stay away from bad. And you also have to do good. They're not either or. You need both. Staying away from bad and doing the good. And that's why, by the way, the prayers of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, what do they compare the sin to? Veharish'a kula ke'ashan tichle. The pasuk says, evil like a bad cloud shall be removed. Why does the pasuk connect and compare evil and wickedness to a rish'ah, to ashan, to a cloud? What's the connection? And Rabbi Bernstein says that just like a cloud, what does a cloud do? There's a sun, and the sun's beautiful. You ever go out on a cloudy day? You want to know something? The sun is there, the same strength and power that it had the day before. It's right there. Sun didn't change. The problem is you have clouds blocking the sun. We have to realize that the averot, like the clouds, block the mitzvot. The mitzvot are powerful. The mitzvot actually have the same strength every time, like the sun. The mitzvah is a mitzvah. Kiner mitzvah v'torah or. The mitzvah, the Torah, it's like a light, it's like a fire, it's like the sun. And the fire of the sun is the same fire every day. But if we're doing averot, we're creating clouds. And it feels like the sun's not there. The sun is there. We're just not giving it a chance to shine. We're not giving it a chance to penetrate. This is what the Torah is trying to tell us in our parasha. Be very careful, because foods could affect your spirituality. It's v'nitamtem. Not only foods, averot in general. It's like clothing. They're going to stop us from being able to enjoy the best things of life, the spirituality that we were meant to achieve. We know, by the way, and why is all of this true? Why is that? Why is it that a kid could be a pervert and be the top mathematician, or the top historian, or the top lawyer, or the top surgeon, but a person cannot be a pervert and the top rabbi? Why is that? The answer is because Torah is not just a subject. Torah comes from the Shamayim. And to be worthy of the Torah, which comes from the heavens, one has to elevate themselves to a spiritual level. That's why I could study all of these subjects in the bathroom. I can't study Torah in the bathroom. Torah and Tum'ah do not go hand in hand. It's just impossible. And there's one more step, Rabotai, before we close for today. Because the truth is, it's not only sins, and it's not only bad foods or bad things that we do, but he takes it one step level. Look what he says over here. Sorry, one second. Here we go. Right here. You ready? Here it is. Gam midot raot. Not only bad foods or bad actions, but even bad character. Gam midot raot mehavot stira leTorah dai b'ma'at. Any bad character, any bad midah can also create that shell preventing us from really being able to appreciate the Torah. Ga'ava, arrogance. Okpida, or a person who is stubborn, or a person who is demanding respect, apologies, etc. Those are enough to make the Torah leave the person. When our rabbis tell us, Derech Eretz Kadma La Torah. What does that mean? Derech Eretz Kadma La Torah. Derech Eretz was given before the Torah, but you know why? Because Im Derech Eretz in Torah. If a person doesn't have proper conduct, there's no way they're going to be able to properly study Torah. The same way you cannot eat taref and study Torah. The same way you cannot do averot and the Torah it won't penetrate the same way. Same thing with bad character. If a person is is rude, if a person is arrogant or stubborn or angry or lazy, bad character, all of these things, he will not be able to penetrate the Torah at the same level. He's not going to be able to study it the same way. The Gemara tells us a story that once upon a time, Levi, here it is, it's in the Midrash. Levi bar Sisai. Levi bar Sisai, big rabbi, was once sent to be a Dayan, head of a city. Well, he got there, they put him at the head of the court. They asked him 3 questions to just verify his knowledge. They asked him 3 questions. Velo yada le'ashiv, he didn't know how to answer them. Barach mehem merov busha, he ran away all embarrassed. Imagine, they hire you to be the head of the town, you get there, and the simple 3 questions you couldn't even answer. He runs away, he goes back to his rabbi. Who is his rabbi? Rabbi Yudan Nasi. He runs back to his rabbi, he tells him the whole story. The rabbi asks his student, but I don't understand. Do you not know those 3 questions? We learned that together. You tell me now. Question 1, question 2, question 3. And the kid spits it off on his tongue. He knows the answers perfectly, cold. He says, I don't understand, you know the answers. Why don't you tell it to them? And the kid responds, Kshebati lahem, when I got there, Rabbi, I have to admit, Asuli bima gdola, they gave me such a beautiful ceremony. They welcomed me with open arms. They put me up there on the top seat. Vezahadati alai, and I became a little bit arrogant. Veshachachti hakol, and I forgot everything. In that moment of arrogance, I forgot my Torah. So Torah is not only incompatible with sin, it's not only incompatible with foods, it's incompatible with arrogance, with bad character, with bad midot. We know even Moshe Rabbeinu, the one who brought the Torah, the greatest rabbi of all time. Moshe, our rabbi, that's what it means, Moshe Rabbeinu. What happened with Moshe? When he came down, he had a whole Torah, but the Torah tells us he forgot the halacha. He forgot a certain ruling a few times. Now, rabbis say each time was because he became angry. When Moshe Rabbeinu became angry, he forgot the halacha. So even the greatest rabbi like Moshe, we have to realize Torah is not able to be digested with bad character. Our rabbis even compare the Torah to mayim. The Torah is compared to water. And what does that mean, compared to water? Something very interesting about water. The Gemara says, always falls to the lowest possible point. Right? That's what water does. If there's something lower, the water will fall to it. Gravity pulls it to the lowest place. And the Torah, like water, can only be learned and studied by somebody who, like water, realizes to make themselves humble. And that is why when God had to give the Torah, who does he give the Torah? On which mountain does he pick? Our rabbis tell us he picks specifically Har Sinai. Now mountains don't have feelings, but God was teaching us a very important lesson. God was reminding the Jewish people that the same way the Torah cannot be given on a haughty, arrogant, big mountain that's showing off. Torah cannot last in a person that shows off. This is the difference, Rabotai, between us and non-Jews. Just going back to our class. We're on a different diet. We're on a different program. A non-Jew can do certain things and it won't affect them. But for us, it's very different. And you know what he says as one last proof? Very strong. Look at Titus. Titus Harasha, when he destroyed the Beit HaMikdash, he came into the Holy of Holies. And he not only went in there, the rabbis tell us, he rolled out a Sefer Torah scroll. And he took a prostitute and he had his way with her on the Torah in the Holy of Holies. And whatever happened to this non-Jew Titus? Nothing. He didn't die on the spot. He didn't get burned, nothing. Nadav and Avihu, Aharon's 2 children, when they did, and what exactly did they do, we're not even sure. They brought a fire that wasn't asked. Is it Avera? Yeah. Is it like being with a prostitute on a Sefer Torah? Which sin is worse? You tell me. Of course the other one is worse. But because they have a different neshama, Nadav and Avihu, the sins that they do affect them in a different way. Titus can go into the holy, nothing will happen to him. Nadav and Avihu go in, even though it was not, they didn't do anything wrong, they just went in. That itself for you is not okay. So we have to realize that our neshama is different than the neshamot of the world around us. We have a different program. We're on a different diet. We cannot eat the same foods as them. We cannot act the same way as them. Even the music affects the neshama. It's already, again, a more sensitive topic. But we have to realize that all of these things, sensitivities, we have a different neshama, and we cannot eat the same foods as the world around us. That's why our Rabbi says, Zot HaTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael. What does that mean? Zot HaTorah asher sam Moshe. This is the Torah that Moshe placed. But our rabbis say in Masechet Yomah, Zacha, if a person is right, if a person is deserving, Na'aset lo sam hayim, Torah becomes a potion of life. Lo zacha, and if he's not deserving, he becomes a potion of death. Na'aset lo sam mita. What does that mean if he's deserving and if he's not deserving? So our rabbis say something beautiful. Zacha doesn't only mean deserving. Anyone know what else does zach mean? Anyone know what else does zach mean? Shem and Zayit, we say zach. What does it mean, Shem and Zayit zach? Shem and Zayit, pure. Let's read the Gemara again now. Zot HaTorah asher sam Moshe. Zacha. If a person is pure, Na'aset lo sam hayim, the Torah will be for him a potion of life. Lo zacha, but if a person's impure, if a person doesn't follow the details and the laws of the Torah, if a person is not pure in their character and in their midot, like we've been saying, Na'aseh lo sam mavet, then it will become a potion of death. The very same Torah, depending on the purity of the person that is studying it. So this is something that we have to realize is real, it's true, it exists. There is a spiritual reality, just like a physical reality. You eat certain foods, if you have certain behavior, if a person's doing certain actions, drugs, cigarettes, whatever, they're going to affect the physical body. There are things that affect the spiritual body. And a level of a Jew is very different than the level of an animal, and that is why for us, these foods affect us differently. They're not affecting other people the same way they're going to affect us. And by the way, not only us, Eretz Yisrael, the holiest land, cannot tolerate the same way other lands could tolerate. The tolerance of Eretz Yisrael is more sensitive. And that is why, as an example, certain sins in Israel, the Torah says, Vataki ha'aretz etchem, the land will spit you out. Cannot tolerate. You could do those sins outside, but Israel is saturated with holiness. That's why Hashem destroyed Sodom. You ever wonder why did God destroy Sodom? There's so many other lands that are as bad or maybe worse. Why did God destroy them? The answer is because Sodom's in Israel. And therefore even Israel must keep to a higher level of sanctity, a higher level of Kedusha. Kal vachomer, if that's true with the land, obviously it's true with the people. So we have to realize that we're doing good. We're learning. Baruch Hashem, we're doing the right things. But it's a two-step program. Doing the right, we also have to stay away from the bad foods, bad actions, and bad character. And all three can really affect our frequency. They can create a certain shield, preventing the good from penetrating us, from affecting us, from inspiring us. We should be zocher always to follow these two levels of sur merah, staying away from bad, and then aseh tov, and then doing the good, and then we will realize that the mitzvot that we're doing is al levarecha, they're directly on the heart. We will see that the mitzvot fit in the most beautiful way. We'll stop over here. Have a wonderful day, everyone. God willing, we'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.